Mm.
Oh,
Cool. I'm recording now.
perfect. Great.
Well, I hope you have a good turnout. I know it's a tough time of year to predict. So
Well, I hope so too.
we had such good feedback just even via email. So
I know. Yeah, this will be really interesting, I think.
I think so too. Well, thank you for joining early. For some reason, I thought the Lux team was going to be here a little bit early too, but I'm sure they'll be here soon.
I kind of thought that too, but oh, and I have it on my list to find the rockfish guy for you. So I'll
Yes.
try to do that tomorrow morning.
Well, thank you. I've got it on my list too, because I think he's one of our advisors. So if you don't find him, I'm sure I can.
Okay.
Alan.
It's not Alan. It's not Davis, is it?
That sounds familiar.
Doesn't it?
And it sounds like Russell and Kelly will not be able to make it tonight, which I think is okay. We'll just work, me, you, and Marianne, on finding a time that works after this with them and kind of a smaller discussion to talk about how the workshop went, what the findings were, and what we might want to do next. So
No, that might be better anyway. Don't you think?
I think
Yeah.
it'll be good. I think we'll have more to share then. So
I do too. Yeah, okay. Okay, one. All right. Yeah, I hope the power's on tonight.
I know, I hope you have heat in your house when you get home.
Well, we have a wood stove, so we're pretty set.
Yeah,
And
you'd be freezing.
Yeah, and it doesn't go to the back of the house, but we can shut the back of the house off. So,
good.
yeah, we're set, and we have a propane stove, so we can cook. It's just we don't have water, but we do have several 5-gallon jugs we can use. So I know
Several 5-gallon jugs.
it's crazy. It's just crazy.
Sounds like a great backup.
Yeah.
Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hello. Hello. How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Good. I'm excited. I think it'll be fun to go through the workshop.
We are so excited.
Yeah, I can't wait.
I'm hoping we have lots of people who are super eager. I think we'll have people who are really excited to take part, so it should be fun.
Yes, and thank you so much for pulling the like sustainability bycatch stuff. I don't know if you guys were able to work it into the presentation too, or just have it ready for like Q&A, but I think that's great because I know they're going to want to dial in on anything
Yes.
we heard that way.
Yeah, for sure. We haven't worked it into the presentation, like have a slide or anything for it, but I for sure have exactly what I sent you. And we'll kind of speak to that right before we move into like questions, just to address that stuff.
Perfect. Love it. Well, I made you both co-hosts. Hopefully that worked.
Yes, thank you. Let's see. Yeah, I can share my screen and I have breakout rooms.
Me too. Perfect.
Perfect. And Carrie, are you going to be the one to initiate breakout rooms? Remind me again. I'm sorry. It's been like 4 days.
No problem.
I can't remember.
Yeah. I can definitely handle the breakout rooms, and I'll make sure that the instructions are posted in the chat as well.
Okay. Awesome. And then Sarah was asking this, which is a good question. For the report outs, we want them to self-select a group member to like report back to the larger group. Do we need to let them know that beforehand, or just kind of remind them when you guys are cruising through the breakout rooms? We'll want
written that into our like workshop slides, so it should hopefully be clear. And then within each breakout group, we're also going to be posting those prompt questions, and that's going to be in that little message that we'll post within. So it'll hopefully be very clear. And then again, also in that reminder, when we're giving like a 5-minute reminder, we'll remind them then to maybe start deciding on who should be that spokesperson.
So it doesn't have to be one of us, right?
No, it can be anyone within the group.
Okay.
Perfect. We got some people coming.
Oh, really? Oh,
Should I let them all in or should we wait it all? Do you guys have a preference?
No preference.
Totally up to you. Yeah.
I might admit just so I can. Well, definitely Nuna. Let's admit Nuna and I'll get her as co-host and then we'll let everybody in.
That sounds good.
Mm.
Hi, Nuna.
I do not.
My voice is a little crusty today. I've been sick for a couple of days. Well, I'll just stay on mute so you don't have to hear me cough. But I'll
Just a
jump in as needed.
Just a bad cold?
Yeah, we have kind of the influenza going around the state, as you guys know. So my kids caught it right before Thanksgiving, and then I caught it, and so we've just been sick. It's been great.
Ugh, bummer. I feel like there's so many different bugs this year.
Yeah, no, I've had all of them.
Every
God.
last one. All right, I'm gonna let everybody in. We're getting close. Sound good?
Sure.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Raquel. I'm with Fish and Wildlife. We're excited everybody's here to join us tonight. I know it's the busy holiday season, so appreciate folks taking time out of the visiting with family and all that to join us to talk about seafood consumer sentiments. This is going to be fun. We're just going to give it a little bit of time, let folks join here. Maybe get started right around 4:02. There's a couple of new names though. I might just, while we're waiting, call out Les and then Jennifer for a quick introduction. Les, welcome. Where are you joining us from? Oh, Brian, you're on mute.
Thank you. That was kind of dramatic, but
Good way to start, Les.
Right?
yeah, and I'm delighted to be here, and we're thankful that we have friends like Sarah who keep us up to date with things like this. So, and Buck, I see is on as well. So I'm not sure. Anyway, thank you.
Welcome. We're excited to have you. You and Buck, and then welcome Jennifer too. If you want to do a quick where you're joining us from, that'd be awesome too.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Custer. I live in Westport, Washington, and my husband and I have a commercial fishing boat, and we do sell off our boat. And I am also part of the group Westport's Fresh Catch, where we're trying to promote local seafood out of our area.
Awesome. Welcome, Jennifer. We're excited you're here. And there's a familiar face, Brian Blake. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. You're on mute.
Just got in the driveway from Seattle, so no snow in the Black Hills.
Glad to
Oh.
hear it. You don't want to zoom and drive on ice. Well, welcome everybody. We're really excited to have you all here tonight. We have been meeting as kind of this seafood marketing partnership for the last 4 years. and we're kind of a ragtag group of seafood enthusiasts that come from diverse backgrounds. We've got folks from state government agencies, local government agencies and ports, seafood harvesters and processors, seafood retailers and NGOs, along with many others. And we kind of started meeting to just see if we could work together on some communication and messaging around Washington seafood and amplify each other's efforts, start to work on things that help consumers figure out when seafood's available, how it's managed, what the health benefits are, what some of the local economic benefits are, and start to share some tips and tricks on kind of how to prepare it. So it's been a really fun effort. We've had some great communication products come out of it, but one thing that we've been talking about since the very beginning was getting some social science conducted into seafood consumer sentiment, so we could learn a little bit more about what some of the motivations are for those that consume, especially Washington caught, but really West Coast wide caught seafood, and what some of the barriers are to purchase too, so we can start to use that information to really tailor our communications and outreach efforts. So that's what we're here to talk about tonight. We finally got some funding to do that work. Washington Sea Grant was successful in getting grant funding from NOAA. And so there's been a partnership with Washington Sea Grant, Fish and Wildlife, and other sea grant organizations across the West Coast to really start to work on this broader marketing and outreach campaign around West Coast seafood. And this is one part of it. So before we jump into sharing the results of the market research, I want to turn it over to Marianne to just talk a little bit about that grant and the scope of that work.
Yeah, thank you and welcome everyone. As Raquel mentioned, I'm with Washington Sea Grant on the Sea Grant team. We also have Sarah Fiskin and Jenna Keaton on our commercial fisheries Sea Grant team. And so shout out to them who have been a really big part of this effort. And the grant that Raquel's referencing is a grant we received from NOAA just 2 years ago, and it's called the West Coast Response to COVID-19 Impacts on the Seafood Industry. And it's a West Coast-wide marketing project intended to enhance seafood availability throughout the West Coast by developing marketing resources and infrastructure and conducting trainings for West Coast fishermen and handlers. So a primary goal of the grant is to improve seafood access by increasing consumer knowledge and increasing utilization of seafood through a public awareness campaign. And this campaign will kick off this summer with our partners at California and Oregon Sea Grant. And the market research portion of this grant is the first phase, and we will be hearing the results of this 6-month project momentarily. So thank you.
Great, thank you for walking through that, Marianne. So with that, I think we're going to bypass a deep dive into introductions. If y'all have used the Zoom platform before, please jump in and rename yourself to have your organization so folks know who's here. But just a quick run through, it looks like we do have some of our seafood harvesters, shellfish growers. We've got processors here. We've got TNC, the Olympic Seafood System Alliance, the West Coast or the Westport crew, and many others. So really excited to have you all here. We're going to be turning it over to Lux here next, and they'll run through some of the insights based on the market research. And then the most exciting part of this meeting is that we're then going to kind of break out into a workshop and actually do some thinking with you all on how we might use some of this exciting data. So I'll turn it over to the Lux team.
Thanks, Raquel. So I'll just give a brief introduction to my team. My name's Jessie, and then I'm here with Carrie and Nuna. So we are a market research agency. We've got offices in Vancouver and Seattle, and we've been very honored to be a part of this project and to kind of go through the results in this workshop with everybody here on the call today. It's been an exciting one. So we are trying to pack a whole lot in. So I am going to try to breeze through some of these things, but we will be holding a little bit of a little question period after I walk through the insights. So to give everyone an idea of what is to come, let me just share my screen here. So here's a quick agenda. So we're going to walk through the key insights from the market research that we conducted. This is a boiled down version today, just again, in the interest of time. So I believe attached to the invite Raquel sent out, there was the longer, more comprehensive report. But again, we just wanted to focus on the main key things today because we really want to focus on kind of that breakout group and discussion activity later on. So Carrie and I will walk through the insights and then we'll give about 5 minutes for questions. I know that's tight, but we want to try to keep it short and we'll try to address most questions, but if there are any that go unanswered or if we're not able to get to your question, feel free to message in the chat. Carrie, Nuna, or myself will answer in there, or you may ask us at any point during the rest of the workshop. But we want to, again, in the interest of time, keep things moving along. When we go into this breakout groups portion, so this is following the key insights and the questions, I'll give more instruction there, but essentially we're going to break off into 4 groups. You will be randomly assigned through Zoom. If you're unfamiliar with breakout groups, there's not really too many action required from you. Zoom will do it all on its back end, but you'll just be brought into another room with less amount of people to give way for more of a group discussion. You'll be assigned a topic and discuss that. And then we'll all come together again, and we'll have spokespersons from each group kind of talk about those main ideas that were shared. Then we'll kind of reflect on those in the chat. And then we're going to go into a larger prioritization activity to try to hopefully, narrow down what's kind of those next steps leaving this market research. So that being said, some of this will get repeated again, but that's just a quick overview. To give everyone kind of context of the research, this is what it looked like. So we had 3 different phases. The first phase was a literature review where we examined 9 resources from various organizations. Those resources were given to us by WDFW and WSG. And that was just to help us, get into this seafood space, understand the context of the, seafood world, and helped us inform the subsequent phases. So that was then our community leader in-depth interviews. So these were 6 30-minute conversations that were conducted over Microsoft Teams with community leaders that were identified by WDFW and WSG. So these were folks from markets and restaurants or other places in that seafood industry. And then following that, we did an online consumer survey. So this was a 10-minute survey that fielded in the beginning of October. We spoke to 400 participants, 200 being from the state of Washington, and then 100 each from Oregon and California. So that's a quick snapshot of everything there. I'm going to pass it now over to Carrie to walk us through the first few key insights that we kind of pulled out from that larger report.
Perfect. Thanks, Jessie. Go ahead. So freshness is very important to consumers when it comes to purchasing seafood. They want fish that is fresh in terms of being recently caught, as well as not frozen, with spoiled fish being their main concern. For influencers who we interviewed, seafood quality is the most important thing, which is determined by freshness and handling techniques. They don't necessarily see frozen seafood as being lesser quality and will sometimes communicate that to their customers whenever it's relevant. Considering this, influencers can be leveraged as information providers to help educate consumers about the quality and freshness of West Coast seafood. So in communications, we can focus on highlighting the benefits of shopping local, including how this might relate to freshness. For example, a shorter amount of time to get the fish from the dock to the store, for example. So here we have a chart illustrating the factors that participants consider most important when purchasing seafood. So they were asked to pick their top choice from this list provided. And as we can see, price is considered most important by about 1/3 of participants, followed by freshness in the context of being not frozen. Few participants feel that location where the seafood was caught or the fact that it was locally sourced is of top importance. Next, we asked participants what they're primarily concerned about when it comes to purchasing and cooking seafood. So here, a lack of freshness in the context of being spoiled or not recently caught tops the chart, followed by concerns about toxin levels. And similar to what we saw on the last slide, frozen fish is both important and a moderate source of concern for consumers. And despite location where the seafood was caught being of lower importance to consumers when compared to other factors, it is cited here as a top concern for around 3 in 10 consumers. So this slide here illustrates some quotes we heard from influencers during those in-depth interviews that we conducted. So to them, seafood quality, freshness, and health are the most important factors when it comes to purchasing seafood. So on the left, we see an influencer calling out the importance of handling and how it affects quality. In the middle, we have an influencer commenting on the importance of having recently caught unspoiled seafood. And then on the right, an influencer notes that there are risks associated with disease outbreaks, particularly among shellfish, which is a serious concern. So moving on to sustainability, we found that consumers generally have a pretty good idea of what makes seafood sustainable. So they consider low negative impacts on natural habitats and fish populations to be indicative of that sustainability. In relation to purchasing seafood, sustainability is considered moderately important and a moderate source of concern for consumers. So to help encourage the purchase of West Coast seafood, messaging should focus on the importance of sustainability and should show how local seafood is akin to sustainable seafood. So for example, pointing out the lower carbon footprint as a result of sourcing closer to home. Also, West Coast fisheries' reputation as sustainable can be further developed by highlighting its sustainable practices, which will increase consumers' perception of the value of West Coast seafood. So this slide illustrates what consumers perceive to make a sustainable catch. So 6 in 10 consider sustainability to involve protecting and restoring habitats, and more than half indicate that fishing from a highly abundant species is sustainable. So now looking at the role of price and value, we found that price is the top most important factor to consumers when they're purchasing seafood. So regarding West Coast seafood specifically, consumers are less satisfied with the pricing of it than they are with its quality and sustainability. But with that said, West Coast seafood is purchased frequently by 2/3 of consumers, and 7 in 10 indicate that they're willing to pay a premium for it. So what this means is that consumers' perceptions of the price could be improved if the perceived value of the product was increased. So to help bump up that value perception, consumers' existing positive view of the quality should be reinforced. Communications should focus on locality, sustainability, and freshness to best appeal to consumers and make them see that value. So this chart here is really illustrating those positive perceptions that consumers have regarding West Coast seafood. So at the top, we see 8 in 10 reporting that the quality of West Coast seafood is good, and 7 in 10 saying the same thing about sustainability. And as was previously mentioned, price is seen to be a bit less strong compared to the other factors, but most still perceive the price to be good. So here we asked about participants' willingness to pay a premium for seafood from various locations. So we see that 7 in 10 say they're likely to pay a premium for seafood caught in the US West Coast and Alaska, indicating that price is not a super strong deterrent for all. So long as there is that perceived value. And considering consumers are equally willing to pay a premium for both West Coast and Alaskan products, it seems that seafood from the two regions are comparably valuable to consumers. And now I'll just pass it back to Jessie so she can go through the remaining insights.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. So moving on to our insights surrounding product visibility, we found that not seeing the product in store is a top reason why consumers are not buying seafood from the West Coast. Those that are unsure of how frequently they purchase seafood products from certain places say that they would be more likely to look at that origin information if the visibility of it were enhanced. So the implications here that we drew were to focus on enhancing that product origin visibility. We suggested bright stickers, logos, signs, and other methods that would really draw consumers' attention while in store. So here you can kind of see that data supporting what I just spoke to. So we asked those who are infrequently purchasing seafood caught on the West Coast why they don't purchase it more often. And you can see that second from the top right here, I don't see it in store is a reason among 1/3 of infrequent purchasers. So that lower visibility in store is a little bit of a barrier there. Some consumers also mentioned they don't know the origin of their seafood. Perhaps they're not looking for that information. So to help increase likelihoods that this information is sought, they suggested a sticker or logo that is easily identifiable or in-store signage. So you can see the top 2 points here. Also information on what is setting seafood caught in different locations apart. So seeking a little bit of that like point of differentiation, what's making this seafood different. In those in-depth interviews with influencers, we asked how to make Washington seafood more appealing to the public, and similar themes surrounding that visibility piece did emerge. So the first and second quote on this page really speak to that. I'll just read part of the first one. So there's no real great identification or tracking, which I think does a big disservice. Washington seafood is generally not labeled Washington. Another common theme in many influencers' suggestions was a campaign or branding efforts to really instill excitement for Washington or other West Coast caught seafood. So that the last quote on this page is kind of speaking to that there. The fish are equally good to Alaska, they're saying, yet Washington fishery do not have any support behind them or any endorsements less than the local fishermen do themselves. These themes are also similar when we asked consumers what might increase their purchase and consumption of seafood caught in their state. So on this slide, you can see that emphasizing that it is locally sourced is number 1. And third, you can see that consistent logos, packaging, or labeling to easily identify that the seafood was caught locally are mentioned as things that would, increase their purchase and consumption of seafood caught in the area. Other top mentions have to do with sustainability and the reduced carbon footprint due to local sourcing. Thinking now to how to best create that excitement around Washington and West Coast seafood, when we asked consumers how they would design an advertising campaign, a common mention was really emphasizing that locality. This was followed also by showcasing that freshness, as well as scenery where the fish was caught. So mountains, water. You can also see that emphasizing that sustainability makes that top 5 as well. And just to give a little context, this question was asked open-ended. So we went in and coded, themes. So these things were emerging naturally or organically. It was following the survey, but it still was not an aided list by any means. And so kind of to wrap up all those key insights, we pulled out 3 recommendations here as potential next steps or things to highlight in future marketing and messaging. So the first thing that we called out was package labeling. Package labeling on Washington and West Coast seafood that details the origin and emphasizes the locality would really help with that saliency and familiarity and perceptions of availability of West Coast Washington seafood. This label can also speak to freshness and sustainability, which are things that are resonating amongst consumers. The second thing we're speaking to here is brand marketing. So kind of a branding effort to help with that differentiation piece that I mentioned. Helping to kind of emulate that appeal of Alaskan seafood and really driving home what's setting West Coast seafood apart, why they should be buying West Coast seafood over other areas like Alaskan or, even further away. And then finally, campaigns and endorsements. So to kind of increase that excitement around West Coast seafood, we're suggesting a campaign that, you know, educates customers and really showcases the seafood. Again, emphasizing locality, freshness, sustainability, using some of those mentions from the consumers about, you know, the scenery and things like that, using those things and leveraging them, as these are things that, you know, are really appealing to the public. So that was a really boiled down version of our report, as again, we wanted to keep it really tight, but those were the main key things that were pulled out. I did notice too on the email chain that went out for the invite that there were some questions surrounding bycatch. So we did do some extra digging, and it definitely wasn't a common mention in terms of the open ends, but it did come up twice. So when we asked, or sorry, a few times, but when we asked, how would you describe sustainable seafood? That did come up twice. So one person mentioned food that is not harmfully depleting the stock, no catching of other sea creatures in the nets. Another person also mentioned abundant and resilient to fishing pressures, well managed and harvested in a method that ensures limited bycatch on non-targeted and endangered species. So that sentiment is living out there, but it definitely is not a top mention, or was not a top mention. And then again, when we asked, what are 3 things that would encourage you to buy more seafood caught in your state? We did hear 2 other folks bringing up bycatch. So one person said assurance that caught was reduced by bycatch practice, and stringent regulations on bycatch and overfishing and close monitoring. So yeah, I wanted to open the floor now to any other questions that might have come up from that report. I can also move us back to any of those slides if we're wanting to take another look, but just wanted to open the floor here for a couple of minutes before moving on to the workshop.
Hello, can we raise our hand or?
Yeah, sure. Feel free to jump in. We can raise our hand. That might be an orderly way to go about it, but
Okay.
I mean, you're off mute now, so
Well,
feel free to jump right in if you
I
have a
had some
question.
history in my life. I'll raise my hand. So, yes, I'm kind of curious 2 things. One, the 400 people who responded, did the 400 respond, or did you send out 400 applicants? That's question number 1 to everyone. And I saw a slide a few back where it says the consumers, it gave an age group like 35 to 44 or something like that. Was, are you finding that the people who are really becoming active in purchasing these salmon is a younger age group?
So
Because-
to answer your first question, I'll start there. We got 400 completes. So the survey was sent out, and then we have 400 responses of people who went all the way through. They passed data
Okay.
integrity checks. They completed the entire survey. So to give you context there. And then in terms of these age differences, so we didn't notice a whole lot of significant differences in age. We did our best to call out kind of regional differences within the report, but we can definitely take another look again. And maybe during those workshops, I can take a quick look at our tables and see if there was higher purchase frequency among that younger group, but I don't recall it really anything significant in terms of the ages.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Rob Sudar. I do some local marketing of salmon from the Columbia River and up into the Puget Sound area. I've been doing that for about 40 years. And I'm the one that submitted those other questions about customer concerns about how the fish are caught or bycatch. And the reason I did that is because I had legislature tell me a couple weeks ago that by eliminating our fishery now, they're doing us a favor because the public will end it soon anyway, because they just don't like gillnet fisheries. And I mean, there are a lot of gillnet fisheries in Alaska. The biggest ones up there are gillnet fisheries. for some species. And also, we're very carefully managed. And mostly what I ever hear is what does the Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch have to say about us? And so, so in that regard, that's the kind of thing I was looking for, if there were any specific comments about gear types that the consumers don't like. And you probably didn't ask it that way. And but that's what the information you did get suggests that it's probably not a big deal if it's well managed. So
yeah, exactly. I think it definitely isn't as top of mind, I would say, perhaps more so for a certain key tuned in consumer, but that's not the majority. And we were speaking to those, so we did do some screening into our questionnaire. So those we spoke to had to be a non-rejecter of seafood, so they had purchased within the past 6 months, I believe, or a year, or were likely to purchase within the next 6 months. So again, it's a kind of a broader target demographic or target group that we were speaking to. So perhaps that's why it wasn't as top of mind for this group, is they're just a little bit more of a general consumer.
okay, thank you. And then my other quick question was, when you talk about influencers, are those marketers, or are they, who are the influencers?
Yeah, good question. So that was maybe I shouldn't have boiled the report back too much, but we do kind of address that in the larger report that was sent out in the invite. But those were primarily restaurateurs, seamongers, or those working in seafood markets, or a larger like grocer that has a seafood department. So we were speaking to those within that seafood department. Yeah, did I miss anything there, Carrie, or did that kind of sum up?
That I did see that list, and so that just pins it down. Thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome. No worries. Great. Well, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Carrie and Nuna and I can try to monitor that and answer those as we go. But I'm going to move us along into our workshop activities. So I kind of, alluded to these at the beginning, but here's a more detailed idea, so everyone kind of has a good idea of what's going to happen for the next little bit of our time together. I will say that these timings on this right hand side there are a little loose. We may have to be a bit flexible, but that's a general idea there that we'll try to stick us to. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to have everyone jump into these breakout groups. So Zoom will automatically assign everybody. Each group will be assigned a topic, which they'll discuss for about 15 minutes. I'll show you the topics on the next slide here in a minute. And then another thing to point out here is that each group should also think about and nominate a spokesperson, because then we're going to bring everybody back together. That spokesperson that was nominated is going to share the group's ideas. We're hoping to keep it to about 5 minutes. So if you have to narrow it down to those top ideas, feel free to do that. And then we wanted to give everybody about a minute to weigh in just by sharing in the chat, just to kind of, because our numbers are quite high. We'd love to hear everybody speak and everybody's reactions to everything, but unfortunately we don't have the time to kind of, one by one go around the room. So we instead are going to ask everybody to share their thoughts to what was said in that chat, ideally naming their top 3 or top 2 or top ideas that was mentioned by that group's spokesperson. Because then we're going to take those top ideas and we're going to do a little bit of a prioritization activity. I'll give you a sneak peek at the grid there. So we're going to try to organize these ideas on this grid of effort to impact. And then that will help us potentially, prioritize the next steps. So with that being said, these are the breakout group topics. So again, each group will only be discussing one of these, and then we'll come together as a larger group to have a larger discussion of them. So breakout group number 1 will be discussing freshness for 15 minutes. Breakout group 2, local. Breakout group 3, sustainability. And breakout group 4, visibility. And then by no means do you have to stick to these questions, but we wanted to, get that conversation going a little bit. So feel free to take a picture of these, jot these down. We will also be putting them in the chats once you move to the breakout groups. But just some questions for reflection here to kind of get that conversation going. So in terms of that topic, what does this mean for Washington or West Coast seafood? What are the missed economic opportunities? How can we change the public's perception of the attribute? And who needs to be involved and or who can lead this initiative? So just some thought starters there. Any questions or hesitations as we kind of get those breakout groups going at all? Again, Zoom will kind of be good at automatically applying those, and then we will set like a 15-minute time frame there. We'll give you some nudges when there's 5 minutes and 1 minute left. But when that 15-minute mark is up, Zoom will actually automatically bring you back here. So if you're in the middle of the discussion and it gets interrupted, that is why. Just wanted to give a warning about that. So we'll go ahead and get those started. Okay, everybody should see a thing that will ask them if they want to join that room. So if you click join, it'll shoot you there. I'm going to stop my share.
All right, I'm going to go put the instructions in each of those groups and I will be right back.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think we can float around, jump in and out, see if there are any questions. But yeah, thanks for doing that, Carrie.
Freshness.
Oh, good, Raquel.
Hi, Raquel.
Hi. Well, these are all familiar faces.
That's what I was just saying.
Did this happen on purpose?
I know. No, we wanted it to be like auto shuffle so people couldn't all choose the same one, but I guess then you get the same organizations in one place.
Well, we're well represented here, aren't we?
We are.
No.
Hey, Carrie,
Hello,
is our room
You guys are the local topic.
local?
Good, okay.
Open the chat and I'm going to paste the questions in there so you can refer to them. Let me know if you can see that in the chat there for this room.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to float. Happy
Awesome.
chatting.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Carrie, one thing. When we go back to the main room,
Mhm.
I did ask a question in chat that wasn't answered because I wanted to bring it up about
Okay.
shellfish being included, very
right.
specifically was included, because there's a number of shellfish industry folks in this call. And a lot of folks are talking in terms of fish this, fish that. So I'd like to, if you could make a note, by the way. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. When we all come back together into one group, I'll put it in the chat there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
No problem.
Cool. So local. I'm really excited about, I have a lot of thoughts on this. Maybe I'll kick it off just to get
Mhm.
juices flowing. So I was really interested to see how much demand there is through this survey for hyper local, like in-state locally caught seafood. It seemed like in our minds when we were setting this up, Robert, we really thought there was going to be more interest in Alaska caught, but the Washington folks included really would prefer Washington caught. So that was really interesting insight to find. And this is where the topics will kind of overlap, but I think there's a missed economic opportunity in like not being really clear that products are Washington caught. And so I'm excited to talk more about how we might do labeling and branding to make sure the consumers really know that they're getting something that was caught in Washington waters, since they want that, they're looking for that. And they're willing to pay a premium for it.
Yeah, that really surprised me too.
It's
Like a
probably
lot.
not a surprise to Robert, though. I wanted to,
Well, I mean, my take on that is that we just don't let the public know what's in season. You know, I mean, we aren't getting that message out. When I didn't see anything about our Columbia River Chinook fishery opening up. Now I might have missed it, but in the limited places that I look or in my email box, I didn't see anything about that. And somehow we need to get that word out as to just what's available in Washington. It's like that nice color wheel you had, you know, or half circle, you know, that needs to be in, actually that would be a good thing to send out to markets, you know, and
Yeah.
say, can you post this on your counter, and maybe get people to ask, and it should go to every newspaper too, and say, would you please run an article on this and discuss how much local seafood there is in Washington.
And Robert, I totally agree with you, but I think this problem is across the board with every single fishery in Washington.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's not just salmon. No, I agree.
Yeah. So, yeah.
No, I agree with that. It needs to be, it's not just about salmon, it's about all the things we harvest, which is a surprisingly large number, really. If you broke the rockfish into all the species that are harvested under that label, it would be even probably more pronounced.
when we were down at Oyster Fest, and you were standing there with me, Sarah, and there was a lot of interest in this little threefold piece that I think it was Department of Health was handing out that showed what's safe, what isn't, that kind of information for
shellfish.
Yeah, and then we showed them our handout of the wheel, and they said, ooh, I want that in a fold out. I want that for my wallet. I want that for my pocket as a reference. Or one person said, I want that for my refrigerator.
That's what I heard at the ones that I went to. Make it into a refrigerator magnet. So when I'm making my grocery list,